In my Better Than Helix video, I explained my way of running an HX effects unit together with an HX Stomp to get all the functionality of a full-size Helix in a smaller, more versatile package. And one benefit of the modular approach is that you can substitute any component for something comparable without making any modifications. Swapping out the Stomp for a tube amp, in my case, or if I wanted to go from the HX effects to a different effects unit or even a piecemeal pedal board, I'm good to go. Then in my HX Stomp versus Universal Audio Dream Pedal video, I teased at the end that one of the benefits of swapping out the Stomp for the Dream 65 is that it frees up the Stomp for other uses. Now the Megazord HX Rig was set up with 4 cable, so the first thing we're going to do is disconnect the Stomp, and then we're going to run the Universal Audio Dream Pedal in the effects loop of the HX effects. I actually hated this at first. Everyone says they want the most realistic amp possible, but they say that when they haven't actually played and understood the vintage gear. That was me. Want to know what I figured out is the problem with realistic when it comes to guitar cabinets and speakers? They don't have infinite clean headroom. They distort. And unless you want a gritty sound, you won't like it. The cabinet blocks and impulse responses on the Stomp and units like it are flat EQ curves. They're not emulations of what a speaker does under different circumstances. All they do is what the speaker and the cabinet would have done, presumably in some sweet spot. And they do the same thing no matter how much signal you feed it. You can't overdrive them. They do have infinite clean headroom. And I didn't realize any of this until I tried to do what I do on a cab model that did not have infinite clean headroom. I went into more detail on this problem in the Versus video. In the end, I gave up on using the speaker emulations on the UA Dream pedal, even though theoretically they're better, they're more realistic, but I couldn't use them. So what I did to get around it, I used impulse responses in the HX effects. See, the HX effects doesn't have the speaker cabinet models that Line 6 puts in the Helix or the HX Stomp, but you can put IRs in there. And I have a lot of good third-party IRs to use. Thankfully, I eventually did find settings that worked on the amp model that didn't distort the speaker emulation. If I use this one speaker model that they give me, the other 5 didn't work. So now what should we do with the Stomp? Number 1, I'd prefer the Stomp to be the first element in the signal chain. And there's 3 big reasons for that. You've got the gate and the poly capo. I like the gate on at all times to silence noise when I'm not playing. It's important, and it's been hurting me not to have it. Churches don't like noise. They don't like 60-cycle hum. They don't like the noise you get from overdrive pedals when you leave them on. I actually have to sit and ride my tuner to mute myself every time we stop playing for a second during rehearsals, or the pastor is gonna stop everything and start hunting down what's that noise he hears. I also like a poly capo in every patch because church singers like to use oddball keys, and they like to let you know about those oddball keys like at the rehearsal. So the poly capo is a helix effect that can shift the pitch up or down. Both of these effects are something that I can run in the Stomp now that it's freed up from the amp models, and they really work better near the beginning of the signal chain where noise artifacts aren't amplified by drive pedals and amps and stuff. In addition to that, a commenter pointed out to me that the HX Stomp has a variable impedance input and the HX effects does not have that. So there's another reason to put the Stomp first. Now this is great and we could stop here, but there is something else that I really want back that we lost when we subbed out the Stomp for the Universal Audio pedal. I want the Stomp to also be at the end of the signal chain. That gives me back my master volume knob, my headphone jack, my output control block, and my ability to send and receive audio from my computer. All of those things are critical for my workflow when I'm practicing. If I don't have them, I can't play with the track, I can't control the volume I'm sending to my PA speaker at home, and I can't use headphones when I don't have my PA speaker. Putting the Stomp at the end also allows me to apply a compressor or an EQ or some other effect to the whole sound if I need to because of some house considerations, or if we have weird instruments and I need to sit in the mix differently. And it also reintroduces the ability to use the Line 6 cabinet models, which are very versatile and very well beloved ever since the 3.5 update. I can put that after the amp and after the post effects. And the way that I get the Stomp in the front and in the back of the signal chain is to just put everything else into the effects loop of the Stomp. The Stomp basically became a pre-post shell for the rest of the rig. So here's how I use all 3 of these units together. So leaving the guitar, the signal is going to hit the input of the HX Stomp, and it's going to have the variable impedance controller, then the gate, then the poly capo. Also, the auto swell block will be right there if it's engaged. Then it's going to leave the HX Stomp on the FX loop send, and it's going to come into the input of the HX effects unit. That's when it's going to hit drive pedals, maybe a corrective EQ, and probably modulations as well. From there, it will leave the HX effects on the FX loop send of that unit, go into the Universal Audio Dream pedal. That's going to be the amp, the cabin speaker emulation. I like the reverb at about 9 o'clock, and the tremolo will be there too if I happen to have that engaged. Now the signal is going to come back to the HX effects on the effects loop return. It's going to hit reverbs and delays and other effects that would be after the amp. And then the signal is going to leave the HX effects on the output and come into the effects loop return of the HX Stomp. It'll hit a compressor or an EQ block or maybe cabinet models if I'm using them, but most importantly, it's going to hit that output control block, and then it's also going to be able to get sent to my computer or receive something from the computer. It's also going to be sent to the headphone jack, all that stuff that I like to have. And of course, the HX Stomp output goes to the front house. Now there's some drawbacks. Obviously the Universal Audio Dream pedal is only giving me 1 amp, and with a Stomp I had a selection of many dozens of amps. Also, we've gone past any pretense of simplicity here. It's actually getting a little unruly doing this without having a board to mount it all to. It's definitely not cheap when you add a $400 pedal in there. Here's the big drawback. Latency is really stacking up now. Every time the signal goes from one of these units to the other, it's got to get converted from digital to analog and then back to digital. And those DAD conversions, when you have a lot of them, they really take up time. I had a commenter point out that he thinks there would be a noticeable latency issue with my Helix Megazord rig, the HX effects and the Stomp together. I mean, on paper, there's some latency. I don't experience any latency. I don't notice any latency. I found out by accident, though, that it is there. What had happened is I was playing at church and I just lost my in-ear monitors. I had to play my guitar by the feel of the pick on the strings because I couldn't hear myself in the house or in any monitors. And it all seemed to go well. I didn't feel like there was a problem, but when I listened to the live stream replay on YouTube afterwards, I noticed that the guitar notes were happening, every single one of them, just a little behind the pocket. Everything, it was almost like the guitar track got out of sync with the rest of the mix. And that's when I realized, yeah, there was latency. I just didn't notice it because I was compensating for it without knowing it. I was hitting my notes a little early because I was playing to what I heard and my hands just naturally adjusted. But when I couldn't hear myself and I was playing to the feel of the pick on the strings, that adjustment wasn't happening. But with the Super Megazord rig, there's actually 10 DA or AD conversions happening, and that is really pushing it. There's one other drawback to this rig, and that is that the Universal Audio pedal can only hold 1 preset at a time. You can change more presets with the app, but the Bluetooth on the pedal is so unreliable. I can't count on that. This was actually a humongous obstacle for me to actually use the Dream pedal in church. I have 3 core amp sounds and I really use them all in most services. And I really didn't want to have to bend over and turn knobs between every song. It took me months of scheming on this, but eventually I did figure out a secret hack to get this Universal Audio Dream pedal to give me my 3 worship tones and to be able to switch between them seamlessly. I go over it in detail in this video, and now I love to use the Dream pedal in church. Click there to watch that video if you haven't seen it. And on the Super Megazord rig, honestly, I find that when I use the Dream pedal at church, I leave the Stomp at home. I get lazy and I just don't bother running all 3 pedals. I've lived without the gate for a long time now and I can manage. And I don't need the poly capo for on-the-fly transposing as much as I thought I would, especially since I worked out a framework for the fretboard that's really working well for me. I started a series on that framework, including all the exercises that I use to teach my fingers where the sounds are. Click here for those.